Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar about learning to become a smart recovery volunteer. My name is Melina Gilbert. I am the volunteer support manager here at Smart Recovery. And basically my role is to work with all of our volunteers to make sure you have what you need to get started on your role of volunteering with us. I've been with Smart Recovery for 5 years now. I started out part-time and have worked my way up to this position. So as you move through, if you decide to take training, move on to becoming a facilitator or any other volunteer roles, you can reach out to me or Molly, who's our SROL support manager. And I'm going to let Molly talk about herself just a little bit.
Sure. I started at Smart Recovery just before the pandemic. I was also part-time. Now I'm doing the SROL support manager position. So I work with our online community volunteers and the leadership team, focusing on that platform. So before we get started, I wanted to tell you what we're going to be talking about today. Our agenda will be giving you a little bit of an introduction to Smart Recovery for those of you who may be new. We'll go over different volunteer roles and opportunities and what it looks like to work through those processes, as well as training information and requirements, and we'll close up with a Q&A. Before we get started, all of your microphones have been muted. At the end, we'll open up chat so that you can ask questions, and these slides will be available in Volunteer HQ, and this meeting is also being recorded.
All right, so a little about us. SMART stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. The key word to remember here is self-management. Our program doesn't tell people what they have to do. It teaches them skills and tools that can be used to be successful in recovery, not just in recovery, but in life in general. SMART supports the availability of choices in recovery. We're about choices. SMART understands that the best recovery program is the one that works for an individual. We've been around running mutual support groups since 1994. While there are no costs for our meetings, we do pass the hat at our meetings to help cover meeting and operational costs.
So our mission is to offer no fee, self-empowering, science-based, face-to-face and online meetings for anyone who is desiring to abstain from any substance or activity-related addiction. SMART is an abstinence-oriented program.
So a little about our program. SMART is a 4-point program that uses tools to help build and maintain motivation, cope with urges, manage thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and live a balanced life. Each of our tools will address one or more of these 4 points, and our Smart Recovery Handbook is laid out in this way.
Smart Recovery was created by recovery professionals using it's scientific based, and we use cognitive behavioral therapy tools, rational emotive behavioral therapy tools, and motivational interviewing techniques. So we acknowledge that recovery is not one size fits all. And like Melina said, the best recovery is the one that works for you. So we help people find their own path to recovery and accept people at all stages of change, even pre-contemplation, but we will show that abstinence is the desirable option. A lot of people want to volunteer after they have worked with Smart Recovery and have become successful in their recovery, and they want to give back and help people who are in the position that they were in. So it helps strengthen their recovery, and also our organization needs volunteers in order to be able to function in the way that we want to and to have a greater impact. So once you become trained, we have lots of ways that you can continue to learn as well, and we'll talk about those in a little bit.
Okay, so let's look at some of our volunteer roles here at SMART. Once trained, you can facilitate meetings in a variety of ways. These meetings can be either public, which means they're open to everyone, or private, And those private meetings are typically for patients and clients, students, inmates, those kinds of things. And meetings can either be standard or family and friends. So a little about our meetings. We offer face-to-face meetings. These are meetings that are held in your area, whatever area that the volunteers in, they get a location and hold that meeting where everyone meets in the same place. We then have our local online meetings. So these meetings are listed as local meetings on our national meeting list, on our national meeting finder, sorry about that. But they're being held currently through Zoom online. SMART does provide Zoom accounts for these meetings as long as they're open to the public and run by a trained facilitator. We started this type of meeting when COVID hit. We converted approximately 600 face-to-face meetings to these local online meetings so that participants could still attend their regular meetings, even with the restrictions that were going on. We've learned as an organization that this type of meeting has an added benefit of allowing people in more rural settings and those without transportation to attend our meetings. Because of this, we've decided that we will continue to offer this as an option even after things open back up and the in-person meeting restrictions are lifted. We also offer hybrid meetings. These are meetings that are held both locally and through our Zoom online at the same time. They can be a little tricky to navigate, but it's being done successfully by many people. We also have SROL meetings, and that's SROL stands for Smart Recovery Online. Molly's going to talk a little more about the online community later in this presentation. I'm just going to touch on the meetings part. These meetings are held via Zoom through our online community. Just like the others, they could be standard or family and friends. Our SROL meetings are either public, meaning anyone who's registered for SROL can attend, or restricted access, meaning that a participant must meet certain requirements in order to attend, such as our women's only, our teens, our veterans and first responders, or our medical and mental health professionals groups. These meetings tend to have more participants than a face-to-face or a local online meeting. So in addition to facilitators for meetings, we also have some meetings that are run by hosts. A host meeting can run a public or a private discussion meeting, which differs from a facilitated meeting in that it follows a script instead of setting an agenda. We'll discuss this difference more later in the presentation when we discuss the training requirements for each role. So another one of our volunteer opportunities is regional and local coordinators. Once you've facilitated meetings for a year or more, you may want to consider one of these roles. Regional coordinators are located in each state, and they offer both guidance and support, as well as doing presentations and providing outreach in the state. We do not have an RC in every single state, but know that we're actively working to do so. Local coordinators, those positions serve as a resource for the regional coordinator in areas that have large meeting concentrations that would benefit from having someone located right there to provide support, guidance, and outreach. For more information on these volunteer roles, or to determine if you have a regional coordinator in your state, you can visit Volunteer HQ on our website. Look underneath volunteer resources and click on regional or local coordinators. If you do not have a regional coordinator in your state, the regional coordinator co-chairs and myself can provide that guidance, support, and outreach. Now let's take a few minutes to learn about what Smart Recovery Online volunteer roles look like.
Smart Recovery Online, or SROL, it is completely online. It has always been online, and it's broken into 3 platforms. So that is meetings, message board, and 24/7 chat. So there are a little bit different requirements for the online community because these volunteers have a different set of challenges, considering that the meetings are much larger And then we have the different types of specialty meetings as well. And you have to consider online safety and also becoming familiar with the platform. So we look for people to have 3 months of prior involvement with Smart Recovery, as well as 6 months of abstinence when applicable. So with the meeting platform, those positions would be meeting helper, and that is someone who will be sharing the screen or answering questions in chat or sharing links. We also have the meeting facilitator, so they will be the person who is running the meeting. Then there is message board, which is a separate platform, and that area has topics. So a message board volunteer will go through and make sure that people are talking about things in the appropriate area, as well as it being in line with Smart Recovery and recovery oriented. So the other platform would be 24/7 chat, which we're really excited about. It came back very recently. So these volunteers will greet people who are coming into chat for the first time. They'll make sure that the conversation is staying productive and appropriate. And then the final role to let you know about is moderator. This position is not able to be applied for. It happens when you have shown what your interests are and you're involved as either a message board volunteer or a chat volunteer. So both of those platforms have moderators, and you'll work with the co-liaison of your area. So we love our volunteers, and like we mentioned, we appreciate all of your feedback and hearing things that would help us improve our community. So once you've been involved and have shown your interest, there are work groups, task force, or committee members. There's the training team as well, and then the board of directors are also made of volunteers.
So let's take a look at some of our training courses that we currently offer. We have the host training, our meeting host training. That's an entry-level online training. It takes about 8 to 10 hours to complete during a 45-day enrollment period. So from the time you sign up until you complete the training, you have 45 days to do so. This is the perfect training to kind of get your feet wet, to see if this is something you really want to do and move on into a facilitator training. It's also a good way, if you're part of a regular Smart Recovery meeting and you're looking at whether or not you want to become a facilitator, or you're already helping out with the meeting in some ways, you can take this host training, and then that enables you to fill in for the current facilitator should they have an emergency, take a vacation, things like that. So in this training, you'll gain the needed skills to recognize and ask for topics to discuss, to be able to identify and apply smart tools relevant to the topic, and to provide questions based on the Smart Recovery tools. The cost of this training is $39.
Another training course would be facilitator training. So these would be the course that you need in order to have a face-to-face or local online or an SROL volunteer. This is a 20-hour course. It is $99, and I believe it is you have to finish it within 90 days, or is it 120?
I think it's the latter.
Okay. So that would be teaching you how to run a Smart Recovery meeting. You'll start the meeting with a check-in. Based on the check-in, you'll do an agenda setting, and then the meeting will take place where you introduce the Smart Recovery tool based on what was brought up in the agenda. And the next would be family and friends.
Okay. So our family and friends training, that will help a volunteer to be able to provide a helpful, valuable service to family and friends of individuals with the addictive behavior. Family and friends meetings share smart recovery tools which can be implemented to help with emotional upsets, effective communication methods, and dealing with loved ones. Techniques employed within the CRAFT program, which is the Community Reinforcement Approach and Family Training, are shared for the benefit of meeting attendees. Prior to registering for this course, you must have completed the facilitator training. There's a 45-day enrollment period for this course. It takes about 5 to 8 hours to complete all of that coursework, and the cost for this add-on is $40. In addition to doing these separately, we have a facilitator and family and friends combo course. The combo course provides both at the same time. It takes you have a 150-day enrollment period to complete both courses. The estimated time to complete both of them is 25 hours, and the cost is $129 US. Molly, do you want to talk a little about Smart for Professionals?
Sure. So this is our training program that is for licensed professionals to use in their practice as well as in group settings. So it costs $299. It is estimated to take 25 hours to complete, and this is eligible for 25 CEs. So when you are on our training website, you can check to make sure that it is applicable with your board, that your licensing board. There is a link there that you can check to make sure it will accept.
Okay, so a little more information about our training offerings. So we have two now, platforms that we're doing trainings on. So we have the Get Smart Fast, which is our online training. And then we have on-site and live Zoom trainings. Right now, because of COVID, we're doing just the live Zoom trainings. So the online trainings, those are done at your own pace online during that enrollment period. Host, facilitator, family and friends, and the professional trainings are all available through our online training. If the cost for participating in these trainings is prohibitive, you can check out our training site for more information on scholarships and the application process for that. So we do not provide scholarships for our professional level trainings. However, group rates are available for that. So our on-site and live Zoom trainings, as I said, due to COVID, we're currently only offering the live Zoom trainings. These trainings are designed for a group of professionals or volunteers who want to get trained all at the same time. They're led by trained Smart Recovery facilitators who are part of our on-site training team. These trainings can be either 2 or 3 day trainings and train on all of the previous trainings we've discussed, as well as more special trainings for teen meeting facilitators, a teen and family and friends combo training, and our Inside Out training, which is a specialized meeting type for correctional settings. Please visit our training site to see the pricing options for these. Now that we've given you all the information about how to become a facilitator, we know it's kind of overwhelming. What we want you to know is that you don't get trained and then just get thrown to the wolves. We have a ton of supports available for our volunteers. So one of the first supports we have is Volunteer HQ. This is a volunteer portal, which provides all different kinds of resources for our volunteers, announcements, ways to register as a volunteer, register your meetings, any of the tools that you may need in your meetings, you can access through that portal. Secondly, we have our Smart Meeting Management meetings. These are held currently 3 times a week. And what these meetings provide is a way for new volunteers to talk with more seasoned volunteers about getting meetings started up, issues that are happening with your meetings, ideas on how to promote your meetings, all of these different things where somebody with more experience would be able to help.
Another volunteer meeting that we have is called Smart for Volunteers, or S4V. The information for it is in the online community, although the link is sent out through SmartCal, which is one of our Google groups. Not to jump ahead, but this is a recovery meeting for volunteers. So now Google groups are an area that our volunteers will brainstorm, they will share information, other resources like articles or research studies. It's broken into different types. So we have SmartCal, which is our general facilitator meeting Google group. We have teen and youth, there's indigenous communities, treatment professionals. So those you're able to sign up for when you register for Volunteer HQ. Next is the volunteer forums. This is an interesting part of Smart Recovery Online. When you become a volunteer, you can request access into our face-to-face facilitator forum. That is for anyone who has completed training and is looking for support and just wants to bounce off some ideas in that area. Then there is also the facilitator forum, which is SROL facilitators. You'll get access to that once you start a meeting. There's also a forum for message board, chat volunteers, moderators. It goes on and on. So that's a really important area for everyone to keep connected. And that's where a lot of our volunteers talk to each other about what's going on in the online community and their experiences in meetings.
Additional support that you have, we have training role play meetings. So these you can attend as you're going through training. When you finish training, you're not limited to how many of these you can attend. What happens is our online training team, we have a meeting twice a month, and we invite a regional coordinator, and we just go through a role play of a issue that you may face as a volunteer in one of your meetings. And then the training team provides feedback. Other trainees or facilitators are also providing feedback on how things can be handled, what worked well, what didn't, those kinds of things. And then again, we have regional and local coordinators, which I kind of talked a little about what they did previously, but they are always a resource for volunteers.
Our national office staff is also here for you. We have the call center. So those would be the ladies who answer the phone. They have a bunch of information on our program, so they are very good at answering questions. We also have training who will help you with the training process. Melina and I are the volunteer support. So the national office is also here to direct you in the right direction.
So we hope you see that you're not, should you choose to become a volunteer, you're not in it alone. Everyone around SMART provides so much support.
So what's next? If you are a current volunteer, that link there will give you the job descriptions for the volunteer positions in the online community, and you can continue learning. If you're not yet a volunteer, the first link to visit www.smartrecovery.org/volunteer. That will give you an overview of volunteering for Smart Recovery online or local face-to-face online. And then there's also the link to our training programs that'll show you the host, family and friends, facilitator, combo course, and the treatment professionals, and continue learning.
So when we sent out the registration form, and you guys filled out the registration form for this meeting, there were a few questions that were asked there. Molly and I are going to take turns. We're going to kind of tag team these questions. And then once we're finished, we will open up the chat so that you guys can ask additional questions. We really want to have this conversation so that, we want to provide you all of the information you need to make the best decision for you. So the first question that was asked was, what does a typical expected workload look like for a volunteer for SMART? So this kind of varies a little, whether you're looking at face-to-face or local online meetings or through Smart Recovery Online. So I'm going to touch on and address local online meetings and face-to-face, then I'm going to let Molly talk a little about the time commitment for SROL volunteers. So typically Smart Recovery meetings last about 90 minutes and they're held weekly. In my talks with many other facilitators, they tell me they spend about 30 minutes a week preparing for that meeting. So that's about a 2-hour time commitment plus drive time. That's really what you're looking at for our face-to-face meetings if you're just running that meeting. If you're doing outreach or going out and visiting and promoting, when you're first starting a meeting, it may take a little longer to get that up and running, to get the word out, those kinds of things. But typically for those face-to-face meetings, you're looking at just a couple hours a week if you run one meeting. Molly, do you want to talk a little about the time commitment for SROL?
Sure. This is also in the the volunteer job descriptions. With facilitator, you have to run one meeting, so you'll want to have the time to prepare, and then those meetings are an hour and a half. Meeting helper is the same. You just want to make sure you have at least one meeting. From there, you can decide how many meetings you want to have and what's going to work with your schedule well. Message board, there is a requirement to make a post at least once a week. And then you have to show that you are active in the message board. And then chat volunteers, you're welcome to spend as much time as you want in chat, but we don't want you to spend all of your time there because recovery always comes first in the volunteers' well-being.
So yeah, we stress lifestyle balance because that's one of the parts of our program, right? It's the fourth point. So in any volunteer role, we don't want our volunteers to overload themselves and burn out. What we are encouraging is for our face-to-face meetings and our local online meetings to do this as a team. So get a buddy, take the training together so that you can split that workload. And you can also then, if one of you has an emergency, the other one can run the meeting and the participants are still able to have what they need as well.
So the next question is, how do I navigate the website for volunteer resources? The volunteer resources are in Volunteer HQ. So you would start at our main website, smartrecovery.org, and across the very top right, it says Volunteer HQ. Some of the stuff is accessible without logging in, but once you have your login credentials, you'll be registered with us and have access to everything in Volunteer HQ.
So I want to take just a second to point out with Volunteer HQ, in order to register and get those credentials, you do have to finish the facilitator training or the host training. So you have to be trained in order to access those more restricted parts of our site. Okay, so another question that was asked was, can I sit in on someone else's meeting until I'm comfortable running my own? By all means, yes. We do encourage you to reach out to the facilitator prior to doing that and talk that over with them. But yes, absolutely, you should attend Smart Recovery meetings. While most of our Smart Recovery meetings, all of our Smart Recovery meetings are run with the same kind of format and run in the same way, they're all a little different on how facilitators do them. So learn as much as you can. That's part of what Molly was talking about with continue to learn. So whether it's an SROL meeting, a face-to-face meeting, or a local online meeting, you can reach out to the facilitator. Just let them know what you're wanting to do. And then as you get comfortable, that facilitator may give you some more responsibilities, let you get your feet wet a little more, and then you can look at filling in or co-facilitating. That was all of the questions we had that were asked on the registration form. I'm going to ask that Karen open up chat. So, oh, look at that. Chat is open. So if there are any additional questions, anything else anyone wants to know that we can answer for you, feel free to type it in there.
I've also given everybody the ability to unmute. So if there's a question you prefer to ask without typing, just do it in an orderly fashion. But Melina, there's a question here. She says, Shirley is living in Canada. Is there anything she has to consider when thinking about volunteering for Smart Recovery from Canada?
There really isn't a difference whether you're in the US or Canada right now, as far as becoming a facilitator, taking our training, any of that. Everything that we have available in the US is also available in Canada. So depending on where at in Canada you are, there are also regional coordinators located up there. And then again, the national office staff here, as well as the regional coordinator co-chairs are available to help you out as well.
That's a good thing about the online community is that geographic location doesn't really impact it too much.
Melina, I wonder if you or Katie is online, if anybody wants to speak to the training scholarship for Volunteer Month.
Okay, so I will go ahead and talk a little about that. So April is Volunteer Month for us. And as part of Volunteer Month, between now and the end of the month, we are offering scholarships for our family and friends facilitator combo course. And we're offering that at $100 off of the cost. So it's not a full scholarship. It's a partial scholarship for that training only. And in order to qualify for that, a current facilitator needs to refer you for that. So they can give you the application or the link to the application, I think is available online, but we work with the referring facilitator to kind of see how we can support you together as you go through training. The expectation is that if we're providing that scholarship, that you start volunteering in some capacity with SMART, whether it's Smart Recovery Online or face-to-face meetings, within 3 to 6 months of your completed training. So if there are any questions, I'm going to pop my email up into the chat box real quick, and you can reach out to me.
And while Melina's doing that, Molly or Melina, Matthew would like to know, would you recommend taking meeting host training before the facilitator training?
It would be, I wouldn't say either way. It would be good, of course, because you would be able to get a little bit more of an insight into Smart Recovery. But if you know what you want to do, that you want to be a facilitator, you will need that course, but you'll have the additional training.
So how many training courses do you need? And are any of them prerequisites for the others?
The only one that has a prerequisite is the family and friends, and you have to complete the facilitator training prior to taking the family and friends training. So the meeting host training, again, you can use that as a stepping stone if you're not sure what you're going to do. But if you know that your end goal is to become a facilitator, you may want to start with that facilitator training, because that training goes more into the tools and the motivational interviewing and the skills that you need to fully facilitate a meeting.
Great, thank you. I don't see any more questions yet in chat, but we'll give people a minute or see if you want to type or speak up. Don't be shy.
Molly, do you want to go ahead and pop your email up into the chat as well? Let's see, Mike, are there any new updates to the facilitator mentorship program? So we do not have the official mentorship program rolled out. We're still working on that. What we're doing with the training scholarships for Volunteer Month is we're trying to see how that mentorship is really going to work by providing it just to the scholarship awardees right now through this month. And then that way we can tweak it before we open it up to all volunteers. But keep in mind, again, we do have those regional coordinators who are basically mentors or serving that role right now, even without an official program.
I think we've answered all the questions.
Awesome. But I would like to thank you all again for taking the time to join us today, learning a little more about us, about our volunteer roles. And again, you can reach out to Molly or myself with questions. You can also email information@smartrecovery.org or call the office. If we don't have the answer, or whoever answers the phone or that email does not have the answer to the question. Yes, got it, Katie. And also the training at smartrecovery.org. You can email them with questions. We all kind of know if something comes in and it's not in our wheelhouse, we're going to put you in touch with the best person to answer your questions.
Melina, I'd just like to comment on one more bit of feedback that came up in the chat. And Sarah J is saying that they want to assess and decide whether this is right for them. And we fully respect that, fully support it. Just because someone doesn't do it now doesn't mean they won't do it down the line, right? It's an important undertaking.
Absolutely. And we really want you to be sure before you take that step into volunteering. You know, we don't want volunteering with us to impact your lifestyle balance. And if you're in recovery, in your own recovery. But when you're ready, we're here.
I just wanted to add also, if you are registered for the online community and have some exposure in there, you can volunteer as a message board and chat volunteer, and you can volunteer for 3 months. And within that time period is when you need to take your facilitator training. So that'll give you a little bit more exposure too, but you do need to have the 3 months beforehand so that you're already familiar and exposed to Smart Recovery.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day.
Everyone.
Thank you.